Early this morning, she is back live tonight in Shale. We can still see a lot happening on the streets behind you.
Yeah, Cody, there is, the overall tone tonight seems to be different as well. As we were walking from the hotel down the street right there, you could feel the tear gas that has been deployed pretty much all throughout the evening, those firecrackers going off to try and scare those protesters away. We saw a lot of looting, a lot of rioting in the early morning hours, but now we're about 2 hours after curfew, and it seems to be pretty quiet. We are in the media staging area just for our safety purposes. I want to give you a look. You can see some officers right there making sure that the roads are blocked, making sure that people are safe. And then further down the road, we're right outside of the Asheville Fire Department and Police Department. You can see these officers now are in groups. Before, they were lined up protecting the police department against those protesters. A lot of these protesters were asking them to take a knee. They did not earlier. They deployed tear gas on and off throughout the evening. Not as much as we saw in the early morning hours, though. The early morning hours was something similar to that of a war zone. And we want to show you some video of when protests began earlier in the day. Here's a bird's eye view from our cameras. People holding up signs, chanting and sharing their thoughts on the murder of George Floyd. 30 minutes before 8, the curfew here in Asheville, the protesters made their way toward the police department, shouting profanities at officers at times, and then at other times, as I mentioned, asking them to take a knee. It was very tense those minutes before crowds just dispersed. They ran everywhere. We were running ourselves away from tear gas, and firecrackers were released. And a lot of protesters I spoke with say that what happened to George Floyd, this is a breaking point for a lot of them. Take a listen to what they had to say.
We're finally taking the steps needed. I think everyone just said enough is enough, and that's why everyone, even around the world, are taking steps to make sure everyone knows Black Lives Matter.
Why didn't those cops interfere? When teachers see other teachers doing bad things, they interfere. When medics see other medics doing bad things, they help. They show what's right. But when police officers see other police officers, they're too scared to help. And even though they have this body cam on them, that does nothing.
And take a look at some footage from last night when we were out here in the early morning hours. We saw people defacing storefronts, running from tear gas, police trying to push people back in riot gear. And every time that tear gas was deployed, people would run away from Vance Monument. And as soon as that tear gas cleared, that's when they would come back. But taking you live back out here in Asheville tonight, you can see those police are gathered in groups right now. Over the last about 40 minutes or so, we've seen people running around, but also a lot of arrests have happened because, as we mentioned, there has been a curfew here in Asheville for the last 2 hours now. So definitely a different tone. There was still a lot of chaos here earlier, but thankfully, last night, this all wrapped up, that chaos, around 2:45. As we mentioned, it's about 10:05. You can see over here, these are the scenes that we're seeing right now of police officers on bikes, basically patrolling this downtown area to make sure that there are no lingering protesters around the city. You can see how they have their equipment, all very different uniforms depending on what officers we're looking at. Some of them have riot gear on, others simply have their normal uniforms on, but all of them ready to protect this city. And a lot of those protesters were arrested here tonight. For now, we'll send it back to you, Cody.
Okay.